children, everyone on the small train. So enjoy the life. Hopefully this is Kew Garden, this is the train, so we should move in very soon. Hopefully 2:30, that's what I say. I will be in your company for 40 minutes.
Everyone's safely installed, we'll be heading off.
Time to go.
And the first point of interest as we leave Victoria Gate is in fact one of the Mark Quinn giant sculptures. We've got a silver orchid coming up on the right. I think everybody's facing forward, so when I say right, it is right and left as we proceed. So behind the silver orchid, we're back to Georgian times. And there is the Temple of Bellona, on top of that small elevation there. And this is a Grade 2 listed folly. It's named after the Roman goddess of war, Bellona. And it looks like it's made of stone, but it's made of wood, specifically American smokewood. And there's an example of an American smokewood tree looking very autumnal, just to the right of the temple there. We've now started to drive along Camellia Walk, as the name suggests. It's dominated by camellia plants and bushes. And in this country, camellias flower in late winter, early spring, but you can spot them now, mainly on the left here, by their very dark green glossy leaves. And the most famous camellia is the Camellia sinensis, the Latin name for the tea plant. One of those is growing in the temperate house, because it is a little bit too chilly in this country for our tea plants to grow outdoors. For some historical context, our royal connection began in 1759 when Princess Augusta, the mother of King George III, founded a 9-acre botanical garden within the pleasure grounds of Kew. Go forward to 1840 and Kew then transferred from Queen Victoria to the government. Sir William Hooker was appointed the first director, and the gardens were then open to the general public for the very first time. Covering 326 acres, today Kew Gardens is the largest and most diverse botanical and fungal collection in the world. Since 2003, we've been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This acknowledges our unique combination of plants, art, architecture, landscape, and not least 260 years of science and ideas here. We have two permanent art galleries at Kew, the Shirley Sherwood Gallery of Contemporary Botanical Art and the Marianne North Gallery, beautiful Victorian oil paintings are displayed in the Marianne North, and this is a favourite destination of mine at Kew. I'll speak a little bit more about Marianne North herself when we leave the next stop, and you can access this gallery from our next stop. Now, as we turn the corner here and we clear these trees on the left, both of these galleries will come into view. Now, the concrete and glass one, the Shirley Sherwood, is closed for today. They're dismantling some of the artworks from Mark Quinn's exhibition, but the Victorian brick building next door to it, just coming into view, is the Marianne North Gallery and will remain open until 5 p.m. today. As will all of the glass houses, except the Temperate House, which is ahead of us and will be travelling alongside. Because the Temperate House, again today, they're dismantling these giant sculptures. But what do we actually do here in Kew? We tried to answer that in our Manifesto for Change, and in 2020 we published our new strategy for the decade, deliberately bringing a tone of urgency. Our purpose and mission at Kew is to understand and protect plants and fungi for the future of all life on the planet. Because without plant life, there's no life on Earth. So this majestic Temperate House, twice the size of the Palm House, took decades to build, finally completed in 1899, and it's the world's largest surviving Victorian glass building. We closed it quite recently. For 5 years, it underwent a complete renovation, both inside and outside, and it branches, and there are no frosts. It's filled with 10,000 individual plants. This is a collection, and it helps our scientists tackle issues from loss of biodiversity to securing food and livelihoods as the mercury rises and sadly the planet heats up. So we will be pulling in at stop number 2 here, but just glance to the right. Here's one of our vistas, Great Pagoda Vista Lanes. Just a glimpse of the Great Pagoda there on the right, links up to the Palm House there. So stop number 2 for a visit to the highly recommended Marianne North Gallery. We've also got one of our popular eateries here over to the right through the trees, the Pavilion Bar and Grill. It's a lovely setting there. She had an extraordinary natural talent as a botanical artist. Victorian age, she made solo, intrepid expeditions to remote parts of the world, from Brazil to Borneo, from India through Southeast Asia as far down as Japan. Before colour photography, she painted and documented over 900 wild plant species. We have over 800 of these stunningly beautiful and vibrant oil paintings in the gallery. Now just glance over to the left and you'll see it's just going over now these flame-coloured seed pods there on the Pride of India golden rain tree. Very lovely. But Marianne and her plants, well, she painted not only the plants, but also the landscapes. So it does give you a very interesting insight into how the world was actually looking in the 1870s. Sir Charles Darwin, science, 1913 by 2 suffragettes under the ban of vote public elections here. And it exemplifies their motto, deeds, not words. In recent years, our gardeners have adopted a policy of letting our wild grasses and flowers grow. It gives a less manicured aspect to the gardens, but more importantly, it attracts the pollinators, the bees and the butterflies. Helpfully, the gardeners mow pathways throughout, so you can take a walk through Kew Gardens. And you'll see this replicated throughout. Still on the right, we're approaching a mustard-coloured information post. Marks the entrance to our Chinese grove, filled with planting from China, mainly from Sichuan. And it does lead you straight down to the Great Pagoda there. And there it is, dominating the landscape in this part of southwest London. It's the tallest and it's the most impressive folly in the gardens. Designed in 1762 by Sir William Chambers for the royal family in that ancient Chinese style, as he had made a couple of trips to China to inspect the pagodas there. At the time, it offered one of the finest bird's eye views of London. People would flock from all over Europe to climb the Georgian spiral staircase to the top, all 253 steps of it. We're going to be pulling in at stop number 3 alongside it, but the Great Pagoda and Kew Palace, well, they're both run by historic royal palaces, and they're closed for this season. But you'll be able to take a closer look. You'll soon see the structure comprises 10 stories. It's 50 metres tall, and we restored it to its original Georgian glory quite recently. This included the 80 dragons. Now, the originals, they were all hand-carved out of wood, and they just rotted away 20-odd years after their construction, still in the 1700s. But when we restored the Great Pagoda, we brought back the dragons. This is in 2018, and the lowest and largest of them have been hand-carved in wood in the traditional way. The remaining 72, the smaller ones, they've been created by 3D printing technology, and they're made of resin. They're lightweight, they're durable, and we'll see if they last the test of time. But they do put very little stress on this historic building. So stop number 3 for a walk around the Great Pagoda, the Japanese Gardens, short walk ahead of us. Anybody would like to alight? I think everybody's happy to stay on board, and as we move forward you'll be able to take photographs if you wish and give the building a closer inspection. A couple of opportunities which I'll point out to you. Now, the story of the Great Pagoda, it took an unusual twist in the Second World War. Because of its height and structure, it became the perfect secret testing place for the aerodynamics of bombs. Holes were cut in each of the floors, and the Royal Aircraft Establishment's bomb designers, they just dropped their latest dummy inventions through the building to test them, the aerodynamics. We're approaching an enormous weeping holly bush here on the right. Just behind it, which might block your photographs, we do have a second opportunity. It's a mini tractor here. But you'll soon be able to take a closer look at the detail on the gold gilded track. It's real gold. Well, you'd have an action shot here. You took a photograph now. Second gap. Exact copies of the originals. Original paintwork scheme of Sir William Chambers. Great Pagoda is looking exactly how it would have looked in the 1760s. We're now leaving the Chinese influence, we're heading towards the Japanese gardens. These are a beautiful evocation of 16th century Japanese tea gardens. They're all enclosed within a symbolic miniature landscape, and they represent peace, activity, and harmony. Through the trees, you'll soon see on the right, there's a raised mound at the center of the gardens. On top of this is Chokushimon. This is a replica of the gateway of the Imperial Messenger in Kyoto, Japan. Intricate carved wooden structure. Came to us here in 1910 after the Japan-British exhibition in London, White City. Those great boulders that you see, they represent the mountains and the islands of Japan. It is a very peaceful place to spend time. Long straight path on the right here, Holly Walk. Planted along there. It's one of the finest collections of mature hollies in the world. Also, it's an important historical feature here. Used to be called Love Lane, and it separated the two royal estates. So that's the estate of Kew Gardens, Richmond, Princess Augusta's, and Richmond Park Estate. Now, George III then merged these two estates into one in 1772, and that then formed the blueprint of the gardens that you see around you today. And it explains why it's Kew Gardens in the plural. It is the joining together of these two royal estates. Now we're amongst the trees here, and do look out for the bird life. We have some lovely jays flying around here, the green woodpeckers. And you'll see and hear the squawking of those lurid green parakeets throughout Kew Gardens. 3 species of geese. The orange-beaked grey-lag geese, the very common Canada geese, and then the more exclusive Egyptians. If we do see the Egyptian geese, we'll point them out to you. Very colourful. But we're in the Arboretum now, which in Latin simply means the place of trees. We have around 12,000 trees rooted here, representing roughly 2,000 catalogue species. Some rare and ancient ones. And as you look at the trees, you'll see most of them wear black badges, which will tell you. We also have 317 champion trees, the best and largest examples of their species in the UK. They're labelled in blue, and from the train you should be able to spot at least 2 of these blue badge champions, so do keep a lookout. I will point one out to you later on in the journey. This path on the left takes you into the Woodland Walk. And you can access the natural area from the next stop. Pretty little country rustic retreat. Queen Charlotte's Cottage is nestled in there. It is closed during the week, but you can walk around it. But we're now approaching the grandeur of our redwoods. We have a thriving mix of coastal and giant redwoods here. I'll point out the tallest tree here in Kew Gardens. It's 40-metre coastal. They're mainly native to the Pacific Northwest coast of America. Some are native to the Far East. For example, the dawn redwoods from China. Unfortunately, they're on the red list, so they're under threat of extinction, but we do have quite a few here. There's one coming up on the left, a curious looking scooped out tree here, which John's pointing to. A young dawn redwood to the left of the carriages. Cab is now driving over a large stone circle. If you look down, that represents the width of an average giant redwood at its base in California, 27 feet in diameter there. And the first tree over that circle on the right, that's your tallest here, there's your 40-meter coastal. Ours are very young redwood terms. They were planted around 160 years ago when they were the ultimate botanical status symbol of the Victorians. Recent report, Kew partnered it, tells us we have around 500,000 redwoods here, far more than in California, where they have around. Leave the herd, head to the Oak Grove, where we're heading to now. Two main access points into the natural area from the next stop, where we're about to pull into, stop number 4. One is via the log trail on the left there. You see a dirt track which leads to it. But the main access point in, just a few steps up the path here, and then it's the first path on the left. If anybody would like a walk in the natural area, stop number 4. We actually have a 5-acre lake as well here. To the right, 5 acres of water with 4 nesting islands for our birds. Can't quite see the water here, but when we turn the corner, you'll be able to catch glimpses of Kew Lake. Looks like everybody's happy to stay with us. That's lovely. We'll be moving on. Now, these 37 acres of natural area, given to us at Kew by Queen Victoria towards the end of her reign in 1898. If you remember, in 1840, she gifted to the nation the rest of Kew. She hung on to this area. She was very fond of it. Could have been because of the cottage in there. When she gave it to us, it was on the provision we would retain it in its uncultivated state. We've honoured that request. We've removed non-native trees and shrubs. You'll see very few Kew gardeners working in there, maybe a bit of mowing, a bit of coppicing occasionally. And as a result, it's very species rich, it's very biodiverse. This rather unruly looking field to the left is acid grassland, quite rare now in Britain. The ant colonies have taken it over, and the soils are very acidic, and it produces this wide range of grasses and herbs. Now, John is making the sharpest turn on our tour at Syon Corner. As we do so, just glance to the right, there's the smallest folly in the gardens. Our follies were designed to look imposing in some classical style of architecture, maybe Greek, Roman, or Chinese, like the Great Pagoda. No practical purpose, but they did adorn the gardens of the wealthy and the aristocracy in the 18th and the 19th centuries. Oh, lovely, we've got some water now. We're emerging onto Syon Outlook, and the River Thames is at very high tide, almost flood level, isn't it, there, going onto the grasses. And there's a paddle border, do they call them there? And on the opposite bank is Syon House, London home of the Duke of Northumberland. Public can visit. Film directors such as Ridley Scott will use it as a location shoot. He shot scenes from Napoleon there recently. Just glance back into the gardens, and between the two beds there you'll catch a sight of the water on Kew Lake. But along that long avenue of trees, you'll see the back of the farmhouse. This is Syon Vista. It's got a fox on the top of Syon Vista there too. Being well fed, I imagine. Yes. So Syon Vista, together with Cedar Vista and the Great Pagoda Vista, if you've got your map, you can see that they form a monumental avenue, triangle of avenues throughout the Arboretum, and they're actually protected by an Act of Parliament. So we're forbidden from altering or obstructing their outlook in any way whatsoever. We've got another fox up there too. 2 of them. Gosh. So that's 3 we've seen. Now that's a record. This large tree here on the right, that's an American red oak, marks our entrance into the Oak Grove. Now we have oak trees from all over the world here. But we also have Quercus robur. And if you can make out any of these black badges from the train and see the word Quercus, that's Latin for the oak genus. So you can check the tree you're looking at is in fact an oak tree, because they do come in all different shapes and different sizes. And we have many hybrids here. So they don't always look like your traditional oak colours. It's just coming into its own now. Although in springtime it's a carpet of English, Spanish bluebells, Camassia lilies, blues and whites. We're now going to be travelling along the top as we progress. How steeply the land just went round. He designed what he called the Hollow Walk here in 1773. With the help of 300-foot soldiers from King George III's Staffordshire Regiment, they turned up with their pickaxes and their shovels and they dug out, hand tools, this long, deep valley. Later became known as Rhododendron Dell in the 1850s. When Joseph Hooker, he became our second director. Father William was our first one. But Joseph made plant gathering expeditions to the foothills of the Himalayas, brought back hundreds of these Asian rhododendron, thrived in the soils here. We now have over 700 in there, joined by azaleas, magnolias, even strawberry trees. But look straight into the dell right now through the foliage of the trees. Can you make out a large thatched roof? That's our minka house. And minka means houses of the people in Japanese. Our minka is an authentic timber-framed Japanese farmhouse. Came to us here in 2001 after the Japan Festival, and it's very interesting. You can get inside the minka daily until the gardens close, surrounded by a very exotic bamboo garden, bamboo from all over the world. Now, if any of you were in this country on the night of the 15th October 1987, the night when the Great Storm swept its way through, of course Kew was hit, this area bore the brunt of it at Kew, and we lost over 1,000 trees here that night. So most of the trees you're looking at in this area were planted after 87. I've got some lovely American oaks here, just young ones, the pin oaks, satchel oaks, American blackjack oaks. We have a path coming up here on the right. That will take you into the dell from the next stop, stop number 5, bordered by this cluster of silver birch there. At the beginning of the tour, I mentioned we have 326 acres of botanical gardens at Kew. We have a sister estate in Wakehurst, West Sussex. This is larger, at 535 acres and much wilder. Completely different topography there. Together they form our living collections, but if you add on our preserved plant specimens in our herbarium, fungarium, spirit collection, plant DNA and seed banks, we contain and preserve over 90% of the world's known species of plants. And down at Wakehurst, that's where you'll find our Millennium Seed Bank. It's a temperature-controlled, nuclear-proof storage bunker we're getting on now with 2.5 billion seeds. It's a global insurance policy. Seed packets arrive from all over the world daily for testing and storing, making it, we believe, the world's largest seed bank, but it is a tremendous conservation tool we've built. So stop number 5 for a walking road, short walk ahead of us, and the Brentford Gate and Ferry Lane car park over to the left. Bertie Knowett. Now, therapy and beauty, lovely timber. There's the, keep looking to the right, and that could be your first Blue Badge champion tree. That's a Chinese poplar. May not look too spectacular, but that is the verified best example of a Chinese poplar in the UK. While we might best be known as Botanical Gardens, we are the world leader in science and conservation for plants and fungi. And we employ over 350 scientists now, working here at Wakehurst and operating with global partners and scientific institutions in 110 countries worldwide. To give an example of the areas of our work, coffee sites. We work with farmers in East Africa, developing climate resilient coffee species such as the Liberica, projects in Ethiopia and Uganda. We have a well-staffed research station down in western Madagascar. Just glance now to the right, the Great Lawns as we call them. This is where we have our outdoor events. Cue the music, enormously successfully every July. Class acts such as Van Morrison, Ruby Turner. Oh great, we've got an Egyptian coming up on the right, just on his own. Very beautiful. Feathers. Oh, this is his partner over there. Yeah, they're never alone. But we're in, on the right of the carriages, the Egyptian geese. We're now travelling to the historical heart of Kew and coming into view is a very lovely Kew Palace. Now this is Britain's smallest royal palace, but it was actually built in 1631 as a private residence for a rich Flemish silk merchant. Now, as mentioned earlier, historic royal palaces closed the building for a season. If you're interested in planting, and I understand we do have a couple of passengers on board who are, 17th century planting is specialised in the Queen's Garden to the rear of Kew Palace. We've got also at stop number 6 the Orangery, fine classical looking building ahead of us, probably our most popular eatery here. Wide variety of food and drink. And closest to Kew, Green, Elizabeth Gate and car park. Next stop, Victoria Plaza. To the Orangery, if any of you can remember who designed the Great Pagoda. It was Sir William Chambers, the favoured architect of the Georgians. Princess Augusta, founder of the gardens, asked him to design her an orangery. This is it. But it failed in that endeavour. There was never enough heat or light in that building for those oranges, lemons and limes to thrive in. But we're now entering the Walk, believed to be the world's longest double herbaceous borders, 320 long, designed into these 8.5 giant semicircles, mirror planted and bedded into families. Topiary bushes here, yew bushes. Still very colourful, but the gardeners are in the process of taking out some of the summer planting. I understand 30,000 summer bulbs were planted in here this year. Coming into view shortly on the left, on top of a grassy hill, is an art installation. It's called The Hive. It tells a story, or it's a representation of, the honeybee and its importance in the pollination process. It's an ingenious sound and light experience, and it's been recorded from real-time activity of bees in our beehives here at Kew. Came to us here in 2016 after winning an award the year before at Milan Expo, British artist from Birmingham by the name of Wolfgang Buttress. Well worth investigating. If the rain stays off, it should be open until the garden's closed today. We're approaching on the left now an enormous copper or purple beech tree. And as we clear it, do keep your eyes peeled left and you'll see a triangular glass roof. This is the Princess of Wales Conservatory, and it's the most complex of our public glass houses here, as it has 10 climatic zones. And it's filled with a huge variety of plants, from cacti to carnivorous plants, from bromeliads through to orchids. It was opened in 1987 by Diana, the late Princess of Wales. It's actually named after Augusta, founder of the gardens. And that entire area to the left comprises Augusta's original 9 acres. This is where you'll find some of the oldest trees here. We call them the Old Lions. There's lots to do over there. One of the world's largest and oldest rock gardens. The Evolution Gardens, looking stunning right now. And so is the grass garden too. It's looking lovely in autumn. 550 different species of grasses. If you've got your map, you'll see exactly how much there is to do over there, especially when the glass houses close 5 p.m. Just glance over to the right, smallest and hottest of our glass houses there, water lily house, home to 3 giant species of water lily. And if you do like your giant water lilies, more in the Princess of Wales. Saving it to the last, we have our magnificent palm house, and this image represents Kew all over the world. It was built in 1844. It actually took 4 years to complete, and it's one of the first examples of modern architecture. But it's also a living laboratory dedicated to the Earth's tropical plants, many of which are now endangered. At least 2 of them are extinct already in there. Others, like the African oil palm, the rubber tree, cocoa, pepper, papaya, tamarind, enormous source of value to societies all through the world for their spices, their timber, fruit, and of course now the medicine that they produce. My favourite plant in there is an Eastern Cape giant cycad from South Africa. It's a type of prehistoric palm, but it's believed to be the world's oldest pot plant. It sits there at the south entrance, close to the but it came to us in 1775, just as the American Revolution was about to start, brought by one of our gardeners. Kew's first plant hunter, but he was also an adventurous Scotsman called Francis Masson. Gardeners still hard at work, taking out the summer planting now, getting into the autumn-winter bedding, with the addition of the 6 palm trees. Mark Quinn's interpretation of palms opposite. Another area of flowering I can recommend is a walk in the rose garden. Just do take this path on the right. You'll be able to see from the train many of the roses already in, they've been in bloom all summer, but they're still with us. 150 different types of roses from all over the world. Some unique hybrids found only here in Kew. We're back where we started, at Victoria Plaza. We have our largest gift shop here, a well-stocked garden centre, cafe, restrooms. We're pulling in on this side, on the right, so do be careful when you alight. There's a gap between the grass and the pavement here. We need to charge up the vehicle a little. We would both like to thank you all for coming on board. Your tickets are valid for the rest of the day. Just do remember the glass houses, Temple 1 is closed, but the rest of them will close at 5 p.m, so will the Marianne North Gallery. We'd like to thank you all for coming on board. Do enjoy the rest of your visit here.